What's up, everyone? We're making do tonight. This is a weird sort of situation this time around where Ben is away, and so we're going to do a bit of full Nuff mode. Things a little bit exciting and a little bit spicy. So bear with me, everyone, as we get this going in a moment. It's kind of the first time I'm actually doing any kind of live streaming solo, specifically, despite, I don't know, 10 years or something in video games. So I think it's about time. Thank you, I guess I should say, also buried in the comments here, Gary, I the moment, Jackie McDonald. Thank you, all of you, for popping in last night when we intended to do the stream and things kind of went a little bit pear-shaped for us and didn't quite work out. So tonight it is just me while Ben is away sorting through some personal business. I don't even know what that personal business is. All I know is it's prevented him from doing the show last night and again tonight. And so, Ben, if you're tuning in after the fact, if you're buzzing around now, just seeing how badly I'm about to cock up our platform, all the best, mate. Hopefully it goes well and we'll chat nice and soon. All right. We're going to get into this. I'm going to whip off the headphones and we'll get into the show properly for a full Nuff mode. Oh. All right, everyone. Thanks again for coming along. What's up, everyone? It is Paul here from the Hoops Crew to bring you a new episode of Full Nuff Mode. I'm doing this show solo this week, and so you guys in the chat there live with me right now, there's a few of you already. Hopefully that number tops up soon. Hopefully you guys have got lots of questions and those sort of things you're going to pop into the comment sections. Would love to hear all of your thoughts about the round one events, and we'll discuss that in a whole bunch of detail shortly. It feels a bit weird because I'm not waxing with anyone here, but it is me, Paul James, one of the many awesome folks at, I just called myself awesome, one of the folks at the awesome Hoops Crew team. That includes myself, that includes Ben, that includes all the guys from the chat. Ollie Dempsey, we're already starting strong. This is good. All the guys from the Chaps Chatting Cats, who I believe are going to be recording their show shortly, and hopefully we've got our streaming side situation working really well, and they're not going to jump in and destroy this for us. We'll see how things go. All right. Let's get into proceedings here. We're going to talk about everything that played out in round one. I'm going to do a little debrief on Nuff of the Week, which I put up last night in lieu of the episode itself. The full Nuff mode episode going live. We're going to start by the game that begun the round, and that is, of course, the Carlton and Richmond game, which was far closer than I think it had any rights to be, I think. Sorry, everyone. There's no graphics. I'm doing this solo. I'm pulling it together last minute. There's no graphics. But yeah, it was. I think it was far closer than I think any of us kind of expected, nor the game had any right to be, really, with Carlton coming out by 5 points, 12-14, 86 to Richmond's 12-9, 81. And all credit to the Tigers, who did a pretty solid job. They're kind of undermanned. They are definitely a weaker team in the competition this year. Carlton are a team that we all expect to be kind of there or thereabouts, and obviously put in an amazing effort last week. They took it right up to them, and it was a really impressive effort. So big shout out to the Tigers fans. Now, obviously, that doesn't necessarily make the pain of a loss any better, but you should be holding your heads high after the performance, especially considering some of the circumstances, which we'll get into shortly. But in terms of the best players, we cannot overlook I think two in particular really shone strong, being both Paddy Cripps and Mitch McGovern for Carlton in particular. I think about Paddy Cripps, he got 31 disposals. It was a fantastic effort. I'd question maybe the effectiveness of some of those disposals, with only about 300 metres gained for the game. But I think a player who really stuck out, and I think he's been one who's pretty well maligned over recent years, was Mitch McGovern. He got 26 disposals, covered 595 metres, was really, really effective. Even got a clearance along the way as a defender these days. So, like, really great effort to Mitch McGovern there. But we can't ignore, I guess, what happened in front of the sticks at both ends of the ground. Obviously, Harry Mackay has copped a fair bit of flack for a while now. And he put in an amazing effort last week, kicking the match-winning goal against the Lions. And I think put in a pretty equally awesome performance here against the Tigers too, kicking three straight in the end, wasn't it? Yeah, three straight, as did Noah Bolter up the other end for the Tigers. I would argue he was probably the best key position player on the field. He got 3 goals, 23 disposals, 9 marks. It was a really great effort by Noah Bolter, a defender come forward. So good on the bloke. He's really kind of crushing it these days, and even covered 613 meters himself. It was a really impressive effort from someone who's kind of, I guess, natural game. Look, I don't know about his early days, but his natural game, as far as we could all tell, was kind of a key position defender. And yet all of a sudden he's been playing forward and doing a pretty great job of it. So good on him. We saw Dusty back for his first game things are, you could see the pieces kind of coming back online for the Tigers, and that probably brought the game a bit closer than we'd expected. But the Blues did what we expected the Blues to do, and that was get the chocolates. So congratulations to the Blues, 2-0. On the negative side, or I guess more on the newsworthy side, I should say, the Blues are quickly becoming the kings of the close game. Now, we've kind of associated that with the Pies for the last 2 seasons. Now, we'll talk more about how the Pies are going shortly, and I'm going to relish that. But really, it's I guess, becoming Carlton's game at the moment. I think their last 6 games have all been by less than a goal across the end of 2023 and now 2024. I still don't think, and I know we said all these things about the Pies and they ultimately proved us wrong, winning in the grand final, but that was a close one too. I think there's still something to be said for being able to put the foot on the throat of an opponent and pull away. And the Blues aren't doing that at the moment. The Pies didn't do that. And it is a thing that I guess makes me a little bit concerned for their future, because like we said about the Pies, and yes, we were wrong, but there's always cases where we end up being wrong. You've got to come unstuck at some point. And I think it's only a matter of time before the Blues come unstuck. So we'll just have to wait and see how things play out there. But the other more unfortunate piece of news from the game was Josh Gibcus, who selfishly had him on my Supercoach team. Thought he was going to absolutely light it up this year after a bit of a run of injuries last year that kind of derailed his season when he was really just starting to take off. I don't want to get too crazy about it and on the Supercoach side because there's far greater implications, but he has done his knee and is out for the season. Really unfortunate news for a really promising young player. Doesn't deserve it. He's so early on in his career, and it's just a shame that that's happened to him. But yeah, I guess Richmond are going to be looking at what they can do to kind of fill that particular position on the ground, because as much as he was young, as much as he'd hardly played, has he even played 10 games yet? He was so obviously in that best 22 and in that kind of defensive area. It's going to be a big loss for them, I think. And it's obviously a real shame for him. And it's a real shame for all Supercoach players like myself who picked him up and thought we were going to get an absolute steal this year. Instead, we're already looking at trading him out, which is a real shame. Next game on the docket here is a game that, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about in a bit more detail shortly. And that is the Pies v. the Swans, where the Pies unfurl the flag. Good on them. Celebrate as much as you want. Apparently you haven't stopped celebrating from everything we've kind of seen and heard, from movie premieres to the fact that you just can't shut up about winning a premiership. But you went on to get pumped by the Swans. Deservedly so. It's interesting, actually, because really the Pies never looked like they were in it in any way, shape or form. They got a few late charity goals, I think the last 3 of the game, if memory serves, just to add a bit of respectability to the scoreline. But ultimately, you were down by about 51 points with minutes to go. So was not great at all. And they ultimately went down by 33 points, 10-9-69 to 15-12, 102. The Swans got a real stranglehold on you pretty early and never really looked back. It was a bit of a procession for the majority of the game. There was a brief period, kind of mid to late in the second quarter, where they the Pies kicked a couple goals back to back, and you thought, oh, okay, here we go. They've kind of snapped out of it, or they've kind of just wrestled back a bit of momentum, or whatever the case was. But the third quarter was just again dominated by the Swans, and really it was only a couple late goals at the end that made the game scoreline wise look respectable. Otherwise, the Pies were never really in it. Statistically, Nick Dacos is doing what Nick Dacos does. He got quite a lot of the ball. I'll get the real specifics here. Give me 1 second. He got 37 disposals, 7 clearances, another very efficient Nick Dacos game, and continues to show why he is as touted as he is. Fantastic effort from Nick. But the rest there, like everything else we want to highlight from this point, it's all about the Swans at this point. Errol Goulden dominated with 30 disposals. And then I think more importantly, and I guess maybe even more reflective of what's going on with the Pies at the moment, is Logan McDonald kicking 4 goals. And not because Logan McDonald kicked 4 goals, because the kid's a really highly talented kid and I think can do some really awesome things. but he kicked 4 goals too, and a fair few of them were Joe the Gooses out the back. And I think it just showed either a structural collapse for the Pies or a bit of lack of discipline, maybe even both, as they kind of wrestle with this kind of post-2023 premiership hangover, dare we say. I know people are already throwing it around there, but you don't want to get too crazy. It's early days yet. So yeah, there was a kind of a few standouts on both teams, specifically though for the Swans. If we want to kind of dive into some of the stories of this game, it is, of course, the fact that the Pies are 0-2. I just touched on the fact that, the word hangover is being bandied around. And as a Cats fan who, had to endure that language being tossed at us over the course of 2023, I'm all about it. Sucked in, Collingwood fans. We'll have to wait and see, how things all play out at this particular point, whether they kind of get it together. There's obviously been some talk already that there's a chance that they could be 0-4. Now I have to double check who they're actually due to be playing next week, because I think that will obviously have a bit to do with it. It must be a semi-decent opponent that they're playing. They're playing the Saints. So I'm not. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. I guess if they slip that one up though, they do play the Lions afterwards, but they're 0-2 as well. So it's an interesting one, but things could go quite badly for either the Lions or the Saints or the Pies at this particular point. I'm really intrigued to see how that plays out. But the thing that I think stuck out the most to me, besides the subject of the Nuff of the Week, which we'll talk about soon, was the Swan slingshot game. It was really, really impressive. And it's a sort of game that I commented on the week before. They were playing in Sydney and you thought, okay, well, it's at their home ground. It's a small field. There's plenty of, I guess, reasons why that could work so efficiently there. But to do it at the MCG and to just slingshot the ball so well, the connecting handballs and then just rocketing off that half back line. And obviously they've got, gems like Nick Blakey there that kind of play a big part in that. It's a really impressive game plan that they've got, and it's one that you feel like is going to hold up pretty well because they've still got a really good defensive structure behind them. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out over the course of the season. It's easy to be a champion team back in March. We'll have to wait and see how that projects over the course of the season. But as the chap's saying here, the Sydney Slingshots, nice David V, GWS Goliath type reference. It's the whole narrative going on between Sydney and GWS at the moment, largely spearheaded by the GWS social team, is awesome at the moment. I am right here for it. I won't put on my mate with the big sound this week. I'll spare you all that, but we might give Dimitri some time later. We'll see. But yeah, it's a really fascinating scenario that's kind of playing out between those two teams. They're both right on top of their game right now, and it'd be interesting, I think, for the game to see an all Sydney grand final. And I'd hate to kind of get too carried away because technically this is round 1, but they are 2-0 both of them, which again just defies all sorts of logic. The AFL could have come up with better naming conventions than this, but it'd be really fascinating to see how the Swans and the Giants kind of play their seasons play out, and maybe they do kind of come head to head in a final, maybe even a grand final. It would be an exciting one, I guess, for the future of the game. But there's another lens where you go, it's two non-AFL states that are duking it out. Does that kind of deflate people a little bit? I don't know. I'm right here for it. I'm loving the Giants. I'm right here for it. Next game is the Bombers and the Hawks, where, look, at any given point, really, you could have justified either team getting up, but the Bombers ultimately got the points in this particular match, bringing it out by 24 points. Things kind of slipped away from the Hawks in the final stages there. After kind of really wrestling back some early Essendon momentum. I think they're up by as much as 3 goals early in the first quarter there. And the Hawks kind of maintained or even started to break away at little points throughout the course of the game. They were always within arm's reach until probably the last 10 minutes of the game or so, where the Bombers really kind of just, I guess, pulled away, maybe some older bodies, some experienced heads, just iced the game and kind of put the Hawks out of it. And a massive credit to the Bombers for doing so. I still don't think you're going to be going very far this year, but you can only beat who's there on the day, right? So they got the chocolates over the Hawks, and all credit for doing so. From here, if we kind of want to focus on some stats, the perpetually broke Jake Stringer with 4 goals on the weekend. fantastic on-field performance. And I mean, just kind of a reminder that he's an absolute flat track bully. Beyond that, we need to kind of shout out some of the Essendon midfield, headed by Andy McGrath and Zach Merritt, who both accumulated more than 30 disposals apiece, combined for almost 1,000 meters combined in terms of distance covered. Really great effort by those two guys in the midfield. But one player I really wanted to focus on was, I guess, an ex-Bomber in Massimo D'Ambrosio, who, he's joined a new club, first game for the season, and a pretty awesome effort with 29 disposals. I wasn't expecting, I didn't realize he was capable of those sorts of numbers. So a massive credit to Massimo for putting in an amazing effort there for the Hawks. And I feel like, I guess, even though the Hawks didn't get the job done, I feel like it was that real team effort kind of game. There was no one that necessarily, I feel like, overly struggled. I'm sure I'm going to see a stat in a sec that'll, fly in my face there. I don't think there was any like absolute stragglers for them, as opposed to the Bombers, where I'd argue that Harry Jones and in particular was kind of one who was just a bit of dead weight for the Bombers on the day. And he's young and he's going to get there. I think he's going to be an absolute jet, but he didn't exactly light it up for the Dons on the day. The Hawks had a real team effort, but they just didn't quite have the rock stars at the top end. Again, I think those experienced heads that got the job done for the Bombers. I mentioned the late Bomber surge played a big part in that. And of course, I think we kind of forget about him a little bit because his roles changed a bit in the last 12 to 18 months. But Kyle Langford popped up quite late in the game. He'd been very, very well held, but it was kind of those late stages of the third quarter and throughout the fourth where he really kind of stamped his authority. He kicked 3 goals for the game in the end, 2 of those quite late in the piece when the game was really up for grabs late in the game. And so a massive credit to Kyle Langford there for a pretty awesome key forward role in those final dying stages of the match, because he's probably the reason why the Bombers got the chocolates in the end and go into the season 1-0, which, I mean, all you can do is win, right? So good on them. Next up, we're one game away from talking about the game that I really want to discuss. It is the Giants versus the North Melbourne Kangaroos. And all credit to North, who, I guess, for the longest time kept the scoreboard looking relatively flattering. They were obviously the lesser team, but they fought the game out quite well, despite the fact that things, weren't really working for them. And there was a bit of a blitz early, or kind of starting late in the second and then early in the third. It was less than a goal in it late in the second term. And it quickly blew out to close to 40 early on in the third term. There was kind of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There was 5 kind of consecutive goals there that really put a big gulf between both teams. But they were doing an amazing job for a good while there, and things kind of got away from them at the end, as I think you're still going to expect from a team who is young. I think they've got the list in a pretty good spot, but these guys are going to need time. They're going to need to, bulk up. They're going to need to get experience. They're going to need to potentially cop a few hidings from genuinely good teams like the Giants before they really can light it up consistently going forward. So we'll wait and see what happens there for the Roos, but I feel like they're in a pretty good space. Highlights for the game. Jesse Hogan kicked 6, and I think he's starting to really show us in this last 12 months or so, but already in these early stages of 2024, that he is ready to finally deliver on all that promise that he showed back when he was with the Ds, before his Freo stint, which I think was probably most people would agree was just a complete failure, and a bit of a waste of a few years for him. But the time that he spent over with the Giants so far has already borne a lot of fruit, and I think he's a really vital cog in that machine. I don't think any team is going to turn down having a key position forward who is as talented as he is. And it's paying off for the Giants to have been able to pick him up. He kicked 6 and was pretty dominant throughout. Other key stats, Tom Green, just doing what Tom Green does at this point. He's going to be a future Brownlow medalist, I'm sure. 37 disposals and 1 goal won. While Harry Sheasel, was he the rising star in the end last year? Someone in the comments, clarify it. I'm 99% sure Harry Sheasel won the rising star in the end. No. When Nick Dacre... No, yeah, Harry Sheasel won it last year. But 32 disposals and covered 755 metres. A really, really great effort from a second-year player who's absolutely on track to be the Roos' best player going forward in a list that is, going to boast a lot of depth. They picked up some wonderful players in the first few picks of the draft this past year. They've already got some really talented players on the list as well. They're in a good spot. And as the chaps say, 3 votes to the GWS social team. That Kung Fu Panda reference that you guys put out, top shelf. Also a little bit belittling, but you can get away to the people who've been taking, and I'm going to shout out some people on the internet here. I don't have names specifically because they're all kind of, I don't know, probably anime avatars or some stupid shit. But there was a bunch of people going, you can't beat up on the small teams in the comp. I'm like, guys, it's GWS. They've got the small, outside of Tasmania, who finally got announced formally today, and you can start signing up and becoming a member now. Might even do it just for a bit of a laugh. Outside of Tassie, GWS is the smallest team in the comp by a mile. They can only punch up, and they should continue to punch up. It is awesome. I'm loving what the Giants are doing. All credit to those guys. All credit to the entire social media team, and the on-field performances stack up as well. Thanks, chaps, for highlighting that because, that team just does not miss. From the back and forth between the GWS and Sydney social teams to I think what they're doing for other clubs in the comp as well. They're kind of really lighting a fire under some of their social teams and maybe asking the question of those clubs, like maybe you need to hire a little bit better or, get a bit more creative, have a bit more fun, lean into meme culture a little bit. And that will take us through to the next game, which is the Geelong Football Club, our boys versus the Saints. And this was, for me, it was the Ollie Dempsey show. He had probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe at the beginning, where he's a little bit rusty, few missed kicks. Some bloke I heard behind me scream about him when he basically falconed the ball. That bloke seemed to miss the fact that the St Kilda player spoilt it and so deflected and hit him in the head. He was there ready to mark, and the ball didn't end up where it should have been. But I don't know, maybe that ball knocked a spark into him because he exploded from that point. There was nothing he couldn't do. Kicked 3 goals and 2 goal assists. He seemed to be everywhere when it counted, especially early in the game. Kind of paved the way for the Cats to build a bit of a lead. One that, whenever the Saints kind of came back at them, would kick a couple, Ollie would be part of another big move forward to kind of wrestle back a bit of that momentum. He's been rewarded with the Rising Star, well-deserved, and I can't wait to see more of Ollie Dempsey over the course of 2024. He's going to be an absolute jet. We need to take a moment to acknowledge the captain, though, Patrick Dangerfield, who launched a ball from 55 metres late in the piece. As a few of the boys were saying in post-game interviews, you'd rather Danger having a shot from 55 than from about 25 because Danger's not necessarily the best shot on goal, and he's got a bit of a history of shanking a few of those. So it was good that he was kind of kicking from that far, gave that ball some time to swing from left to right, back in between the sticks. He really had to make it work to get there. And I think there was a lot of people a bit iffy about what was happening as that ball came off the boot, but glided through nicely, kicked the match winner. Paddy Dangerfield, you're an absolute gem. But beyond that, he had 25 disposals from just 75% game time. Now, Ben and I discussed this a lot last year, that Paddy has been on a reduced game hours for the last 12 months. And I thought going into the finals that might amp up, or as we were kind of looking like we were about to fall out, that might ramp up. It never happened. And it doesn't seem like they're going to be upping the hours, the game minutes for him too much this year either. But to play 75% game time and get 25 disposals, kick the match winner and be as electric as he was, and really that strong but still incredibly fast body through the midfield that we know him to have been through these years of winning Brownlows and all that sort of stuff, I think is awesome. And if the Cats model is to preserve his body so that we can potentially throw the kitchen sink at it at the end of the year with Paddy Dangerfield playing 80, 90% game time in the finals, assuming we make it, of course, it's round 1, then I'm all for it. Look after the guy and let's get him ready for late in the piece. Anyway, the final scores though, there's another player I was going to shout out, so we'll get to Max Holmes in a sec. But those final scores, 10-16, 76 to the Cats, defeating the Saints, 9-14, 68. I don't know. The Cats, I think, were the dominant team for the night, and I think there's a lot of team stats that will show that. We had more disposals, we had more kicks, more handballs, more inside 50s. Where the Saints got us, I think, in particular, was actually their efficiency inside 50. we weren't great in that area. We weren't great in terms, it was 49.2% for us, but I think we weren't especially great through that kind of midfield to half back line in kind of shutting down their movement. Now, admittedly, the Saints got a few cheap ones from some umpiring decisions. And yeah, I'm going to go full Nuff mode on this. The umpires stunk during that game. They screwed up both ways, but I think there was a few occasions where St Kilda got goals directly from umpiring errors. And so those guys need to take a good hard look at themselves. Not as much as the ones from the Sydney and Collingwood game, but we'll talk about that after this. Other stats from the game. Max Holmes, as is mentioned here in the comment section by the chaps, 23 disposals, 686 meters, and a disposal efficiency. I didn't realize this was as high as it was, 95.7%. That is fantastic, considering that he had, how many of those disposals were actually kicks? Max Holmes, 14 were kicks. So he's missed the target once by foot, really. Twice. Sorry, disposal efficiency 95.7 and kicking 92.9. So probably, well, no, that's going to be about one kick. So lighting it up, Max Holmes. Obviously his contract is going to be a subject of conversation for a while, but right now he's an absolute jet. I want to shout out what Lord Flashheart has said here, talking about Sam De Koning and looking a little bit off. I'm kind of with you. I'm not completely on board with the worry about his progression per se. I think there's just a lack of hunger, not even a lack of hunger. I think it's discipline. I think it's the fact that, he's still a bit of a young kid that plays a part in it. I spoke about this back on Hoops content throughout last year, and I think even in 2021, where I really took issue with the way Sam would conduct himself when he'd get outmarked or a decision wouldn't go his way. He spat the dummy as far as I was concerned. He had a really petulant child sort of attitude. And I know that kind of phrase has been tossed around in footy circles from time to time, not really at Sam's expense, but it's been thrown around a little bit in the past. And I think he just needs to do a little bit of work on himself, not his ability on the field, but like a good hard look at himself. And I don't mean in that like really disciplinary sort of parental sort of way, but he needs to take a bit of a look at himself and the energy that he's bringing to the ground, because I think that is rubbing off on his performance a little bit. He's too focused on one instance that doesn't go right, which as a defender, it's going to happen. You're going to have goals kicked against you. You're going to get outmarked. You're going to have a free kick against you for poor discipline, for, arm chops or any of those sorts of things, for holding the man, whatever it is, that's going to happen. But you can't just crack the sads and give up as a result. And it feels like still Sam has a little bit of that in him. So I'm really hopeful that he just takes that little bit of time to just ground himself and remind himself that whilst he set an unbelievably high bar for himself in 2022, I just hope he takes some time to recognize just how good he is and does what, I guess, follows kind of a cliche a little bit and focuses on the next contest. It doesn't matter what happened in the last one. If it didn't go your way, no big deal. Next contest. So hopefully Sam is hearing this. Sam, we love you. We love you here at the Hoops Crew, and we think you are absolutely our number one key defender for the long term. But I think there's that one aspect you probably need to look at a little bit. And if you can do so, I think you'll find that 2022 form again. Now, he's still been in the wars. He was in the wars last year. He kind of copped a couple beatings throughout the course of this game as well. And look, he didn't necessarily lower his colours too much. He was playing mostly on Max King, and Max King kicked 2, but he also kicked 2 goals for. So, there's a little bit of work to do there. Jackie, thank you for kind of shouting out the word petulant. I was a little bit lost for words there. And kind of, probably took that in the wrong direction. You're absolutely right. I think he puts those really high expectations on himself. And so then he gets really down on himself, and he's got to be able to shift that focus to the next contest. I think he's unbelievably talented. Like I said, he's probably our key defender for the next 10 years. He's just got to recognize that doesn't make him Superman. As much as we want him to be, that doesn't make him Superman. You're going to lose a contest from time to time, and you just got to get back at it. And it can come across, I think, a little bit childish, and maybe, even though I probably used the wrong words before, maybe at times a little bit petulant. But I think it's all a psychology thing, and I think he's more than up to it. It's just a matter of kind of shifting that focus very, very quickly. focusing on some other stories from the game, Jezza probably kicked the early contender for goal of the year. I feel like that could be our goal of the year for at least the first half of the season. It's just going to take him. Well, I'm sure someone's going to bob up and kick something freakish at some point. But it was a pretty incredible goal. It was nice to see him jumping up on the signage there, mostly because he had a bit of momentum, but it was such a Jezza thing to do at the same time. So Jeremy Cameron with an early goal, a goal of the year contender, it'll be right up there. Will be hard to beat. It was a pretty awesome effort. Certainly, history says that the AFL and I guess the selectors of goal of the year look pretty favourably on those repeat efforts that then end in a pretty spectacular goal. And I would say kind of full speed, starting at the wing. And I mean, really, the only difference between him and that buddy goal was the fact that Brad Close was in the way and he delivered it to him poorly before getting it back and finishing the job himself. With that little bit of mayo put on the end by jumping on the fence, it's going to be a hard one to beat. I do want to take a moment to chat about Brian Myers and the grand boot toss, which I alluded to before when I was talking about the GWS social team and the fact that the Geelong social team has had a bit of fun with that particular one with a fantastic Austin Powers reference. If you haven't checked that out, please go check out. I'm sure it's on all platforms, but I've definitely seen it on Facebook and Twitter. Go and check out the Geelong post there about Brian Myers and the boot toss. That was great. There's been some awesome other clips of it as well. People kind of turning that boot toss into a meme. It's been great. Loving it. Rowan Marshall from the Saints, the ruckman. You towed up Reece Stanley. Mike Myers, that's right. Rowan Marshall, you are very lucky to be playing this week. That was absolutely the tackle that put Tanner Bruin into the dirt and had him off for a concussion test was absolutely a tackle that should get you suspended. But because we are still kind of in this climate where it's about the outcome, you've dodged a bullet. That's the sort of tackle we do want to see out of the game. We don't want to see heads whipping against the ground like Tanner's did. It wasn't the most intense of hits, and that's, I think, why he was probably successful in passing the test. Hopefully there's no delayed effects for Tanner and he's doing all right. He certainly came back on the field and tore it up for the remaining 3 quarters once he got back on the field. But yeah, I think that's the sort of thing we want to see knocked out of the game. It was a rough tackle. Don't want to see any more of it, but massive. Jake, is that you in the comments? Because yeah, look, that's fair. It's such a weird one, that one, because you've got 2 rules that kind of conflict with each other. Between the below the, diving below the ankles and that sort of thing, which is ultimately what Danger got the free kick for. But also kind of the reckless, Danger never had a chance of actually getting his hands on that ball. He just did what Danger does, and Danger just throws himself at 110% speed at the ball. But it's weird. Like, he shouldn't have gotten a free kick because of the damage he did to Stocker, because it wasn't an illegal. I don't know. It was weird. I think he kind of half got his arm over the shoulder along the way, I think. So maybe you could make an argument for that, but certainly I don't think any umpire is going to make the call because it was so fast. We only have the benefit of a replay there to help us in that instance. But I think it's such a weird one. I can see both sides. And I think if it weren't for Danger going so fast at it in just a typical Danger sort of way, I think any other scenario I could almost see the decision going the other way. That was, kind of reckless contact or something like that. Unnecessary forceful contact. You could argue behind the play, something like that. Plug. Yeah, I'm glad you flagged it, because going full Nuff mode, I probably would have just ignored it. But yeah, really, really interesting one there, I think. So sucked in, Saints fans. But Marshall had the boot off for 10 minutes. Can't believe the umpire stopped the play for a boot. I don't think they would have had Grind not tossed it. As soon as I think the opposition has taken advantage of the circumstance, I think that's when the umpires were probably entitled to draw a line and go, no, now you're actually ethically, and it's more of an ethic thing because it's certainly not a rule break, but you're taking advantage of the situation here and kind of making mockery of the opponents. So I understand why the umpire stopped the game at that point. I don't love it, but I get it. grind. It was worth it for the memes. Let's look at it that way. And Lord Flashheart also says, the Saints were rewarded 3 goals from the umpires. So getting one back the other way is not so bad. Did Danger actually kick a goal from that though? I don't think he did from the Liam Stocker hit. He got his obviously free kick at the very, very end of the game. So Lord Flashheart, if you're talking about another goal in particular, thanks. Let me know in the comments. All right, we better move on because I've referenced umpiring. I've referenced bad umpiring. Oh, yeah. Ben is here. Absolutely sack him. I'll do this every week going forward. Hob. Awesome hosting, Hob. I want to kind of take a moment, and there's already a full video. People have had the opportunity to go check it out. In fact, people have been doing so in their hundreds. So if you haven't already done so, go check it out. Enough of the week this week going to the AFL umpires. For those who are in... they're going a little fix from Ben. The AFL umpires who could not see the ball hit the sky cam during the Sydney and Collingwood game. There's 4 of you. Everyone watching on the TV could see it. Everyone at the ground could see it. The players recognized it because they realized the ball was pitching short and needed to go chase it. But the 4 officials who can make a call didn't see it. Better go to Specsavers. Moving on, because there's a full video on that already, and go check it out. The next game that we're going to discuss now comes... Oh, no, sorry, it's the other Saturday night game. It is the Suns versus the Crows. And I don't think I tipped it. I can't remember. I don't think I tipped it. I wasn't ruling it out in the slightest. And anyone who's been tuning into kind of preseason Hoops Crew stuff knows that I'm a big fan of the Suns and what I think they can be, but I don't think I'd quite expected them to get the chocolates here. And yet the game was never in doubt until the last couple of minutes, really. They blew the Crows away really early. They just probably didn't capitalize like they should have with some wayward kicking 7-9 up until 3/4 time to 3-4. There was some real opportunities missed there. They kicked 1 goal 3 in the final term and nearly blew it. But Josh Shelley-led Adelaide came storming back into it in the last quarter, kicking 5 goals 2 and nearly pinched the game, with the final scores being 8-12-60 to 8-6-54 in favour of the Suns. 2-0 for the Suns under Dimmer. They're not going to complain. There's some rough edges they need to work on, but congratulations to them. And I think there's more to be said there, I think, about Adelaide, which I'll do so in a sec. We need to take a look at this Gold Coast midfield, who is absolutely destroying it at the moment. Took Miller, Matt Rowell, Noah Anderson, they averaged 30 plus disposals. Didn't work out the exact number. Assuming I'm a maths teacher. 9 tackles on average, and they kicked 2 goals between them. And you can go and toss in Sam Flanders on for that matter as well, who'd also had 35 disposals and accumulated another 539 meters on top of it. That midfield is something else. They've got the nice mix of inside and out, with Rowell kind of being the face of the inside ball game, but Took Miller doing it just as well. You've got Anderson, you've got Flanders, you've got all these other blokes that can run through and do a great job as well. Their midfield is, if not the best midfield in the comp, it will be soon. They're going to be an unstoppable force in the midfield going forward. And so then it's just about how they can kind of get the other 2/3 of the ground sorted out in the forward line and the defensive 50. And whilst the defense kind of held up over the course of the game, it was a little bit all at sea near the end there. And I think they've got to look at the ways that they're kind of giving away big bursts of goals, because they did the same thing against Richmond the week prior. The forward line probably still needs a little bit more work. How many goals did Ben King kick on the weekend? Did he kick any? Ben King was goalless from 4 disposals. So he was incredibly well held. In fact, he conceded 20 meters for his team as well. No goal assists, nothing. Absolutely contributed nothing to the game, which is, I guess, a very un-Ben King-like performance, because I would say he's the good king of the two. Max just being a little bit wobbly from time to time. But he contributed absolutely nothing. And they do, I think, need that more consistent performance through their forward line. They can't rely on the smalls to do all the work, which is something they've done for quite some time. They can't rely on their midfielders to kick bags for them as well. They really need a consistent forward line output. Roses kicked 2 for them. Ainsworth kicked 2 for them. And then it's just a bunch of midfielders kicking singles, from Rowell to Bailey Humphrey, who's obviously going to be a future Jet as well. Thomas Berry, Noah Anderson. You need more from your forward line, and the forward line contributed very, very little. Great weekend for the Kings. 2 goals for, and Max kicked all of it. Moving on, though, from that game. Actually, no, sorry. We need to take a moment to talk about a gigantic Falcon sighting from that game as well. The ball was teaming down at some point there, and I don't know if anyone's seen the footage of Jared Witts copping the ball to the head, but it was an epic hit, and you could hear that from a mile away. So just go check out that footage if you haven't already. Jared Witts getting a monster Falcon. Moving on to Sunday. We're beginning with the D's versus the Dogs. And I think it wasn't the most exciting of games. I'm sure if you're a D supporter, you're going to enjoy the final scoreline. But I don't think there was a huge amount that we necessarily learnt from this game in particular. We here have been saying that the Dogs are going to be one of the big disappointments of the season, that they could be without a coach sooner or later. And they certainly didn't do anything over the course of this game to make me reconsider my stance. Clayton Oliver had 35 disposals, had a great moment with his coach on the boundary line there, hugging it out after his return, and obviously a really strong performance. 35 disposals, 589 metres, and 2 goal assists. All from, importantly, and we spoke about Danger with his 25 touches from 71% game time. Clary's 35 disposals came from 71% game time. It was an absolutely dominant performance from a bloke who didn't even play 3/4 of the match. Max Gorn with 26 disposals and 35 hitouts. We obviously know that that Tim English was the All-Australian ruckman last year. Well, Max Gorn came out and just reminded him who's the king of the mountain when it comes to the ruck world. Did an amazing job there. Jacob Van Rooyen, 3 goals from 6 disposals. That's efficiency. I like it. That is a very traditional key forward sort of output there. Barely touched the ball, but every time you do, it's a shot on the sticks. And he kicked 3. So congratulations to him. Some news out of the game. Jacob Harms belted an old teammate. Clown. Was there some pent-up frustration? Or is it just because he's a hothead? I'm not too sure, but I don't think he's much good at footy, but he can swing his fists. So, Jacob, enjoy some time off. The D's, they always kind of had him at arm's length, but kicked away late in the piece there and really kind of made a bit of a mockery of the Dogs. I think it's fair to say, even though I double checked the worm just for a little bit of extra confidence and confirmation, the Dogs they kind of held a lead through the majority of the first term, but the D's kind of kept him at arm's length for most of the game, and then as we kind of touched on, they kicked a few late goals there to really just put the game well out of reach. The Dogs, I think, have got some big problems going into this year, and I think a 45-point loss to the D's 16-13, 109 to 9-10, 64 is perhaps just the start of many problems that they're going to face over the course of the year. So let's wait and see what happens in that particular space. I don't relish it. I do enjoy what the Dogs are trying to do, but I think they're going to cop a few pantsings over the course of the year. A game that, despite the scoreline and despite the two teams participating, was one of the most intriguing games of the weekend, was the Power going head-to-head with the Eagles. The Power had 40 shots on goal. They kicked 16 goals, 24. I believe, and I wish we had someone like Swamp here in the chat, but I believe 24 behinds is the highest number of behinds as a club that they've kicked in a game before. But 16 goals, 24, 120. Double the number of scoring shots, 10-10, 70 to the Eagles. A bit more efficient for the Eagles, which is kind of what kept them somewhat in it there along the way. Look, the Eagles didn't disgrace themselves for the first half. They kind of kept it under or at about under 30 points for majority of the first half. And in fact, in the first quarter, were right there or thereabouts. They were never in the lead. If I double check the worm, no, they were never in the lead at any point along the way, but a really great performance there. The game, the reason why we wanted to watch this was because Harley Reid was making his debut. And it wasn't the most scintillating of debuts, but I don't think it's easy necessarily when your team's had 40 scoring shots against it. He got 16 disposals after starting pretty strong. He started off the game quite well, but then kind of went quiet, I think, through the second half. And that kind of really reflected what happened to the team. The Power really started to kind of sink the boots in and really climb all over the top of the Eagles late in the piece, and Harley kind of went missing along with them. Connor Rosie got 27 disposals and kicked 2 goals. Charlie Dixon kicked 3 in maybe an ominous sign because you feel like Charlie's kind of had a bad run at it for years. You feel like it's only a matter of time before he does another ankle or he injures his leg somehow and he's out of action. But a full flight Charlie Dixon is a force, is a very dangerous force. And it's a really great thing for them to see him kick a few goals. Should also note, Geelong platform, Asava Radaglia coming out, 10 disposals and 6 marks in his debut game for the Power. Congratulations to Asava, found a new club. We love you. Hope it goes well. Hope you have a bad game when you play against the Cats later in the piece. And I guess my other piece to focus on is the fact that Rosie and Butters are going to steal some serious votes from each other over the course of the year. I think they're going to rob each other of Brownlows somewhere along the way if they haven't done so already. They both got 27 disposals, as I mentioned with Rosie, 27 to Butters as well. Butters kicked a goal too. They're an incredible duo, those two, but they are absolutely probably going to cost each other a Brownlow. So team success comes first. Next up, and it is our final game of the week. We're going to talk about the Lions going head-to-head with the Dockers, and you thought this was just going to be a simple affair. The Dockers, meant to be one of the cellar dwellers of the year. Their coach just signed on for a year. Seemed like really, really weirdly delivered news, especially for the duration. You think, okay, like they're trying to shut the chatter away for now, but it's going to bubble up because they're probably going to get smacked this year. And then they went and won by 23 points. So the Lions never looked in it. They kicked a couple near the end, just again a bit like the Pies to kind of add some respectability to the margin. But they were behind by 30 most of the way through the last term, and even a chunk of the third quarter as well. They were never, outside of the first quarter where they were strong, they were never really in it. The Dockers kicked, I'm going to have to double check this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 consecutive goals from late in the first quarter to early in the third. I'll get this weird whistle going. I sound like some Disney character. They kicked 8 goals on the run across the first and early into the third quarters, and that really just snuffed anything the Lions had. They kicked 1 goal back, and then the Dockers kicked another 3. So the game was over at that particular point. All credit to the Dockers. They surprised us all there with that, but it was headed by some pretty extraordinary performances from Jai Amos, kicking 4 goals. I think that kid is going to be crazy good, probably winning a Coleman somewhere down the line. He runs, he jumps, he can kick. He's an absolute jet. Caleb Sarong with a club record 46 disposals was an extraordinary effort. Congratulations to Caleb Sarong there. And Luke Ryan with 33 disposals and 817 meters gained. For the Lions, Joe Danaher was really one of the only real highlights for them. Kicked 3 goals too in a very typical Joe sort of performance. But he did also accumulate quite a bit of distance as well. And I assume I've got to double check exactly how all the stats come about. But those 645 meters he got, that's not just from the distance covered when he's taking a shot on goal. That's ground play. So 20 disposals in that resulted in those 5 shots on goal. Pretty great effort, and really kind of kept the Lions afloat when no one else was really doing a job at all. But I guess maybe there's something in the whole sign the coach on, and then there's no worries from that point. It's a show of belief from the club to him, and maybe the players, really want him and really respected that and really stood up for their coach. So Longmuir has, to the end of the season, and hopefully for his sake and for the Freo Dockers' sake and their supporters' sakes, hopefully that results in a few more wins over the course of the year and maybe a saved coach and maybe a really, really bright and shiny future ahead for them. They've got a good list. So it's been a weird one to kind of see them struggling in the last 12 or 18 months. So, and a big shout out again to a former Cat, Jordan Clark, 24 disposals on the night, on the afternoon, the twilight. We love seeing Jordan Clark do the job for the Dockers. Well, that is all of the games for the week. Somehow I've managed to ramble for nearly 50 minutes at this particular point. That is crazy to me. But if you believe Ben, apparently I can do it underwater because I've been able to man these kind of solo things for quite some time. We've already spoken about Nuff of the Week. We've gone through all the games. I want to make sure as we wrap up to just send my best. Ben, like I said, don't know what the go is at the moment, but sending you all the best. Hopefully we have you back on camera next week to talk all about round 2 and everything that plays out there. Thank you to everyone in the chat for tuning in tonight to kind of share your thoughts on round one. Been some great feedback. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for bearing with me and all of my ramblings, because I can prattle on. Again, talk underwater. Make sure to stay tuned. The Cats next game, specifically, we are a biased Geelong platform here. The Cats next game, Friday night. It's the must watch. It's also, I guess, the only game you can watch on the Friday night. We're going head to head with the Crows, who are probably smarting a little bit from that loss to the Suns. 10th v 9th, and well, hopefully we get the chocolates. I'm really, really hopeful that we get the job done, but we've got to travel to Adelaide to do so. Let's see how it all plays out. Let me know, I guess, as we start to wrap up, throw some margins here in the game. Cats by how much, Crows by how much. We want to hear your thoughts there as we kind of start to wrap things up. Make sure, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube. There's a whole range of awesome content there. I may or may not right now be holding up the Chaps from recording their latest episode of the Chaps Chatting Cats. So go check all that stuff out when that goes live, I believe, tomorrow morning. We've got Rach Danderfield putting her tips in. You got to go check out what Rach has to say about the upcoming round. We've got all sorts of preview content. There's Behind the Play that will go live tomorrow as well with a new guest. Stay tuned for that. It's been live on Patreon for the Hoops Crew community already. And I should shout out the Patreon there. An amazing platform. Lots of early access to content. Lots of great dialogue. We look to try and field comments from you in the community there on Patreon and bring it into this show. Give you guys a bit of an extra spotlight, an extra platform. We really, really appreciate it. Colin's car broke down. Colin can't get a thing right. He's an absolute hack, that bloke. Shit producer. Can't sort out his car. Anyway, Colin will be talking after the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight to hear my ramblings. I really appreciated it. Thank you to Jackie in the chat. Thank you to Lord Flashheart. Thank you to Saints TV. Thanks to the Chaps. Rob Kieran's, Jackie McDonald, like everyone who's kind of piled in, including those who were there on Sunday night awaiting the show that didn't end up happening. Thank you all for your amazing effort, your amazing support. We're really, really thankful. And until next week, remain Geelong strong. I'll see you later.